All right. Well, we're going to get back into it here. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but the good thing about technology is we can edit it out. So those of you out there don't even know that it happened. So once again, we're here with Josh Miller, Triple Point Outdoors. We're going to get to know him a little bit and his products and basically sit around, have a good time for a little bit and chat, just like we're sitting around a campfire. So, Josh, thanks for coming on again. Appreciate all the hard work you do here for the Bowman podcast, and you're an integral part of it. So, tell me a little bit about TriplePoint and how it came about, and let's start with there because it's just a mean product.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of been a crazy ride. It started with a dream and then it became a concept and now we're living the reality and the production. But all my life I've enjoyed bow hunting, as a high school kid on young, I think maybe a freshman, 14, 15 years old. You have one there. Um, but I struggled with wanting a broadhead that was super precise, but also worked every time and opened up and didn't pre-deploy. Just all the issues a lot of people have. I think the biggest thing about it is the simplicity. For me, everything has to be simple. If it's not simple, don't do it because I think things have gotten overly complex. And if you look at a lot of the products coming out today, they're more and more mechanical. There's all kinds of parts in them, and there's just a lot of chance for failure. And while I can say nothing's perfect. We can break the Clovis if you want to. You can shoot it at an angle in a concrete block or in a rock or something. The biggest thing about it is from the moment of the shot until impact, it cannot fail. And for me as a bow hunter, as well as a lot of other people that have that thought right before hitting the trigger and the release of, boy, I hope this thing holds together. That's something that the hunter doesn't have to worry about. And it was a weird concept to think of. It took a lot of years to get right, a lot of years of refining, perfecting, testing, the scientific method back to, my history, mechanical engineering, teaching STEM and robotics. It all played a part. Everything we do today, as far as the marketing and social media goes. But I think the initial idea happened a long time ago, hunting state park, state forest. I was in a tree stand, my summit climber. I happen to love the open shot, so I was up in that and I was pulling a broadhead or arrow out of my quiver, and the thing deployed, and I was sitting there with my hunting gloves on, trying to hook the blades back in whatever collar system or whatever it was. I won't say specific brand names, but I was trying to get the blades to not deploy, and I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? There's got to be a better way other than O-rings and spring clips and that sort of thing. And the idea popped in my head of the small rare earth magnet. That was at the point where they were just getting into industry quite a bit, into innovating with how to use them in electric vehicles and wind turbines and such. And I was teaching about it, and I thought, that'd be a really cool way to get the stainless steel blades to stay in and almost lock but yet not. And that was the night I decided to start exploring this idea. And 16 years later, here we are. We're in production now. We have the full company. I've been to Africa and killed huge animals with a broadhead, and had some pretty phenomenal success to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have one here, and you can tell it's dirty. My son's been railing it into the ground, chasing every animal he could here at the farm in New York. He's 9 and getting used to hunting, and he's shooting now a lot more than he was, but he started when he was 4 and 5. But I mean, he shoots 28, 29, 32 pounds, depending on the draw length. As he goes up, the draw weight gets a little bit more, and it just reacts flawlessly. I mean, this has been shot probably 25, 26 times just in the past 2 days into the ground. And all it is a little bit of dirt. It works perfectly. It's razor sharp. And it just truly just works. It's a great product. So how did the first one, like when you were sitting there and drawing it, how did it come about? So was it just sitting there just ripping through drawings one after another, or did you have a thought in your mind of what it was going to look like, and then you had to look into patents and different things to look like, how did that happen? Because there's a lot of things I think of in my head, and then when I go to put them down on paper, it's like, oh yeah, okay, well that didn't work.
Right,
So
right, right. Yeah, I think the initial idea was how do we get these blades to not deploy, pre-deploy, and the shot and that sort of thing. And then it actually didn't start with the design; it started with research. So I spent probably 2 years reading all the journals by Ed Ashby. Ed Ashby did all these
Yep.
penetrative studies, broadhead studies out of Africa on these heavy bone animals, specifically a lot of single bevel studies because he believed in that thoroughly. And I read journal after journal of his impact studies, his penetrative studies, and I said, okay, how can I take all of this already done knowledge that's sitting there for me and glean a mechanical broadhead or a new broadhead out of this that does things better than anything I could even imagine, beyond my wildest dreams? And how can I use that information in my design? And then, of course, you look at other patents out there that are related and you say, okay, how is this different than mine? One big thing I had to think of first was, how do I want it to deploy? Is it over the top? Like a forward deploy? Is it a mid deploy, somewhat like a Schwacker, or is it a rear deploy? And of course, looking at all the things I had to do with it, to my understanding, I had to make it rear deploy because at these bows, the evolution engineering in bows with high speed crossbows with vertical bows, the speed gets pushed more and more and more and higher and higher and higher. And the only thing I could think of is it has to be rear deploy so it can handle any speed anywhere. And of course, now, we're at that point where you can shoot it from a, Raven R500 at 500 plus feet per second, and it shoots just like, your son shooting his bow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's an amazing product. So after you got through that, so just walk someone through the steps of what it takes to put a product out there on the market. So you research the design, you find out how you want it to deploy. Now you want magnets involved in some way. So now are you hitting the drawing board, or are you like still no, that we're still doing some more
Yeah,
research here?
at that point, so I knew I guess after researching the Ed Ashby studies, I knew several things. I knew I needed a 10% rear ferrule flare, which you can see there on that Clovis. You've got a little flare at the rear of the ferrule. That's 10% greater than your arrow diameter. Um,
Correct.
and that's there for a reason. There's a lot of physics behind that helps self-center it in the air, that helps penetration by about I think 15 plus percent, because it opens up the wound channel so the arrow shaft isn't dragging going all the way through, and it
Got it.
tremendously impacts penetration, that little flare in the end. So this like very like when you look at the Clovis, a lot of people just see it and they go, wow, it's really cool how it functions, but they don't understand there's a multitude, a large number of engineering concepts built into this head that you don't see that are working. So I had to look at that point. I looked at single bevel. Okay, want to be single bevel. I had many people tell me, no, Josh, you can't do that. Mechanical broadhead blades are too thin. They won't hold up to the torsion of a single bevel twisting pass through. And I said, okay, watch me. We're going to go heavier mechanical blades. We're going to go 39 thousandths thick, push them as heavy as I can, as thick as I can. The ferrule window, how open is the ferrule window? Well, it's got to accommodate the blade. So it's got to be about 80 thousandths thick. Well, some guys say, let's go thicker blades. But then the problem is then you only have a certain amount of weight to deal with, 100-grain broadhead. What are you going to make your ferrule window wider and make the ferrule itself become weak? Because that's something you can't do either. So at that point, Paul, what I had to look into was material science. What's the ferrule going to be made of? Steel, titanium, aluminum. I chose a T6 tempered aircraft alloy aluminum for one reason. It's light, it's as durable as titanium and strong as titanium and most steels. So that gave me the option to have a light ferrule that's super strong with that T6 temper. I chose a 420 hardened stainless steel. It's at a 51 Rockwell for the tip and the blades. That way they're nice and sturdy and thick. That both the tip and the blades are 39 thousandths. And then I had to work back. Okay, where's this magnet go? For a long time, we had an issue with a magnet because we were trying to do a top-down vertical press. So what I did originally is I thought, well, it's kind of funny. I actually had the horizontal press initially in my drawing, and I thought, wait a minute, it might be more secure to put the magnet top down through the back of the ferrule. And so we were using, I think it was like a 1/16 inch diameter magnet for a long time, press fit top down, and you got to work with tolerances and the machining tolerances versus the magnet tolerances and that sort of thing. But eventually we got one that worked really well. The issue with that is, of course, a magnet like chalk is brittle. So at impact, because the middle of the magnet wasn't supported, you might get 12 shots in, and at some point that magnet cracked in the middle. And of course, we couldn't have that. So then I moved back. I went back to a horizontal press fit, and that's where we found our butter, was that horizontal press fit. Because what happens is the magnet's pressed into the aluminum, and the aluminum wraps around the magnet in the front. So there's about 30 thousandths of metal that keeps that magnet from ever going forward. It literally cannot ever go forward. And then it locks it side to side as well with that press fit. So that way, when the blade's open, they're not pulling it anywhere and it can't move at all. And then on impact, your magnet only experiences compressive force. So, like a piece of chalk, when you twist it, it snaps very easily. But if you compress it like concrete, it's very strong. Well, a magnet's brittle. It's the same, kind of reacts the same
Hmm.
way. And so when that ferrule impacts something, what happens is that magnet is actually under compression and zero tension, and so it won't fracture.
Got it. So there's a lot of science and engineering in this broadhead more than just what meets the eye. I hate to say it that way, but
Yeah.
every little thing matters on it. And I'll tell you, the thing that got me first and foremost was I was always not a fan of the rear flare in the back or a broadhead that didn't line up to my arrow. So, like Easton made the little collars or VAP has the collars you could put on. There's little adapters and everything to
Mm-hmm.
prevent that. But it's actually a good thing to have it there. You don't want it huge,
Right,
but
right,
just
right.
a little bit out there just so that the arrow flies through anything seamlessly without any friction, and friction causes drag, and then drag is lack of penetration. So
Absolutely.
um that's I didn't really understand that until you explained it to me, but just a really really great design. So how many different before you came out with version one, and this is a helicut here, version two, with the solid blades. How many prototypes did you make? I really want to know this.
Oh man.
Honestly.
Oh man. I'm trying to like, well, I will say that the first 10 prototypes I had spun off cost me $1,000 for 10 for 10 broadheads. It was very expensive. It's not an endeavor that doesn't cost anything. You have to put some serious, money into what you're doing with engineering and the process of creating a product. But we had 10 ferrules originally. We started with the single bevel sharpening, and I actually had a guy in Columbus that helped me initially because he runs a knife cutlery business as a knife sharpening business. And he goes, Josh, and I already wanted to stay single bevel anyway. And he goes, Josh, let's stay single bevel all the way around, including the tip. And that was before the helicut happened. And I was like, but all tips are sharp on both sides. He's like, no, you don't want to do that in this one because the single bevel is going to give you a sharper tip and a stronger tip edge. And so I was like, oh, okay, let's do some testing on that. And I tested it, and it was true. The single bevel gave us a nice laser precise shot. The tip actually, because the cutting blades open up and start spitting, the tip actually ends up kind of coring out the regular tip because it's sharpened on one side. It almost kind of cores and kind of pushes tissue to the side as it corkscrews through, and gives you a really good amount of penetration. Now your helicut tip, of course, is going to start spitting on contact because it's sharpened on opposing sides, and then it has that chisel tip impact. So that's great for heavy bone, and that's probably our most popular. I'd say broadhead right now is a helicut, just because it has the
Yeah.
single bevel on both sides.
Yeah, and that's what this one is here that you're looking at as I spin it. You can see the glare come off the sharp edge there,
Yep.
and then alternate onto the sharp edge there. So that's your helicut one on opposing sides. And it's funny because when you get these out of the package, like you're not going to slice your finger on them. Like
Mm.
they're razor sharp to the point that they're like so sharp that you can do anything to it,
On the
and then when I
edge.
see
Yeah.
yeah, on the edge, it's just because of that single side cut. But man, when it hits something, and they're what, inch and three quarter cutting diameter, 2 inch cutting diameter.
Those, yeah, it's inch and three quarter, but you get a slap impact. So you're going to get anywhere from entry of 2 to 3.5, almost 4 inches on the regular
Yeah,
Clovis.
and we've seen, um, I mean, my son shot a rabbit and it got easily 4 inches of impacts on
Yeah.
that. My elk was easily 4 inches. The deer we shot was easily 4 inches. And because this chisel tip in the front opens up that half inch to three-quarter inch, and then this slaps open here and it punches it open again.
Yeah.
So you're getting basically two impacts with one shot.
Yeah, a lot,
Um,
a lot of broadheads, if you look at different companies, they have gone away from just a simple tube blade if they're smart, because they need a bleeder. They need a
yeah,
blade transverse at 90 degrees that becomes a bleeder blade, and they realize quickly if they don't have one, they need one. Well, with a Clovis, the tip's the bleeder. Matter of fact, quite
yeah,
honestly, the tip on the Clovis is big enough you could kill something with that just itself going through an animal.
yeah,
But I wanted to put something out there. There's all kinds of reasons. Like, for example, that tip is the length it is for a reason. That tip sticks out the way it does in front of the wing butts. because I want that to have initial penetrative impact cut. I want that tip to
Yeah.
sink first. I want that to be the
It's about
bullseye.
3/8 of an inch past the end of the ferrule.
Right. And that
I
there are
mean,
some
that's what it
there
looks like.
and if you look at out there in the market, there are some heads where the wing butts are actually too close to the front of the tip. And what happens on a hard quarter shot is you'll get deflection because those wing butts are hitting and kicking, and it'll deflect in a different broadhead instead of having that tip out front. So I thought, well, I need to have my tip extended. I need to have the wing butts this width. And so it was really, to start the broadhead design, speculative. It was research, come up with a proposed theory, design it, and then it was look at all the materials and select what I want it to be made out of, and then it was all right. Let's put this together and see if we can get it to work. But that was 16 years ago. 16
Yeah.
years ago was the initial idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a work of art.
Thank
So
you.
then let's talk about a little bit of the next step here with these extra holes. So the locks mode, I guess you're calling it,
Yeah,
where you can shoot the same broadhead at a target. So you can practice all season. And I tell you,
absolutely.
I've been practicing and we've been practicing with this tip, and you don't have to sharpen it. I mean, the tip, I've never
No.
sharpened it. I just take the screw out, change the blades, and go hunt. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a couple of the original ones that had the holes in the blade before you went to solid blade, and you just put the screw in. But the new ones now in V2 have the solid blade, so they're a little heavier, and they don't break at all. And now you just change the blades out, throw a screw through there, and you're shooting your same tip. And this tip just
Yeah.
does not get dull. Like this went
No.
into the ground literally in the rock 25 times. There's not a dent, there's not a scratch, there's not nothing.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
grab something here. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's always interesting to me. Our tip's really strong, but this is a rock. Let me get it close so you can see it. Maybe if the camera catches it. There. This is a rock from Africa I brought back. Guy shot a mechanical broadhead through this rock and chipped off a piece of the side, and he wanted to give it to me when I was over there because he was so impressed with how strong the tip was. I think he was shooting an Impala at the time, I believe, but the tip is 39 thousandths, just like the cutting blades, and the single bevel Gila cut really strong. I Other than maybe a little edge chatter, you just don't roll that tip. And I think one thing that guys struggle with is they want these really long, super sharp tips, and everybody wants super thin, razor sharp blades and double bevel. And the problem with that is they might be razor sharp, but as soon as they hit a bone, they roll. The edge rolls and the
yeah,
blade destroys itself, and it's done.
yeah. No, I mean, that's just great research there. The only thing that I had seen, and just because I have a 9-year-old, he likes to drive expensive things into the ground as much as possible,
Mhm.
is that this tip will never chip, it will never break, it'll never go dull. These blades, the only one I've ever broken was the original one that had the holes in it and locked, and that went through 5 game animals and over 30 impacts into the ground in about a year. About a little over a year now since it's been going.
Yeah,
And just washed it, so that's amazing. Um, and the only thing that I can say that happens to it is you got to just make sure you wash it, because sometimes when the dirt gets in here, it doesn't have this automatic, see how it like clicks and goes right back to where it was.
hmm
In the beginning, you saw it, I had to push it closed because there's dirt in it. Now I have all dirt all over my computer. But it's that's the only thing that happens to it. It
yeah,
stays
yeah.
sharp. And I mean, look, boom, it closes and
Can't
nothing.
wait,
I mean, you
can't come
can
off.
sit here all day long and this thing is not going to open. And another thing
Yeah,
I found, what helps with the retention of the sharpness is when it goes through the animal like this, as soon as it goes out the other side, it closes.
it's close.
So when it hits the
Yeah,
ground, it hits like this, and your blades are fine, and
yes,
you're
sir.
not breaking this tip. So
Yeah,
for those doubters out there, I mean, you got to buy it, you got to try it. It's just an amazing broadhead, through
thank
and
you.
through. So there's more coming, right? We can't talk too in depth about that, but it
Yeah,
doesn't just stop with the Clovis. We have the turkey foot. So let's get into that a little bit. I know turkey season's over, but I was a little taken back by the tip of the turkey foot. I don't have one here to show. I don't know if you have one right there that you can grab,
you
but
get a turkey foot tip, Emily. Turkey foot tip.
it's shaped like a turkey foot. It's three of
Yeah.
these, out of one. So let's talk a little bit about the engineering thought process behind that one, because it's really a cool product, not something that you see every day.
Yeah, there's something really cool going to be happening with the turkey foot next spring. I think people are going to be shocked when they see what I'm going to release next. But the turkey foot tip actually was designed to have retentive catches on the side. I just dropped it. So hold on, this is a real podcast, and I just dropped the tip. I don't know where it went. Oh, it's
We're,
under
we uh
under your chair. So anyway,
we
the
like to keep it real here, so
it's
keep going.
definitely real. It's definitely real. It's right under your chair.
Yeah, don't step on it, Emily.
Yeah, I've got. I don't know if I can get it up here, and I don't know if you can see it with a
You got to put it like
camera.
in front of your face.
That looks weird. There,
There you go.
there it is. Anyway, so the turkey foot tip actually has retentive catches built in. There are some broadheads that will have them on the side and such. I want to do all mine in the tip because I didn't want to inhibit penetration at all. But I did want to do is allow the catches to rip and tear flesh as it's rotating through. And so what that turkey foot tip does actually is just rip and tear as it's going into a wild turkey or a small game bird, and it is actually retentive. So it's actually slowing the broadhead down so it's not going to blow through. Because the issue with wild turkeys that we all know of, just like guinea fowl in Africa, you shoot them, you blow through the thing, and it runs a couple hundred yards, you never find it. And so
Yeah,
that the guys in Bowhunter Planet shot their turkey with one this year, and it went maybe 20, 25 yards and piled up because that tip just does absolutely destructive things. I shot it through an ostrich in Africa out of a R500 at 60 yards, and you'll see it next fall when the episode of Hunt Tech comes out and I'm on there hunting. It destroyed that ostrich. There was copious amounts of blood within a second and a half after impact on that ostrich in Africa.
awesome. So, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's this broadhead right here. It's
Yeah,
just this tip here. Instead of one point, it has a second point here and a third point here, and think of it looking like that.
yeah,
And each one is single beveled, sharp on one side. And it just goes in, grabs, slows down the broadhead, but still does the same thing
cuts
as it
through.
cuts through. So, and that's available in 100 grain. And let's talk about it's titanium or magnesium collars that they are.
Yeah, it's a tungsten alloy actually.
Tungsten alloy.
It's a really dense tungsten alloy that goes in the back, and actually they're magnetic too. So when you put your collar on, your 25 grain weight collar, it's going to slide on the back of the ferrule and actually magnetically kind of attached. It wants to attract to the magnet inside the broadhead. So the collars generally don't fall off when you put them on because they magnetically attach right to the back of the ferrule.
Yep. And that's what I use hunting when I shoot deer. I just use the broadhead, and then the little collar slide on the back, and it just barely grabs on with the magnet, and it sits right there behind it.
Mhm.
So it sits out like that. And it's really great product. And then you can get up to 125 with that. Have you tried putting two of those collars on to
Yeah,
do
we've actually
150, or is there not enough thread
yeah,
in there?
there's unfortunately not enough thread in the back of the throat to thread that on
Yeah,
your
because you're
arrow.
getting maybe one turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not enough. But I will say that the lock mode that we have is very, very different from most heads because what you have is essentially instead of us having to produce a practice head and include it or offer it for sale along with the broadhead, you have a practice head included in your broadheads because you can take any Clovis broadhead you want, put the set screws in, the blades with holes on, they're practice blanks. And what I did is I actually engineered the practice blanks thinner with holes in them. So that way, when you put the set screws in it, you have a same weight practice head as your hunting head. There are some broadheads out there where you have like I think Schwacker and Sever have the set screw hole to lock them in. The problem is both those heads, when you put the set screw in, you're adding 4 grains right away to your broadhead, and it's not going to
Yep.
fly the same.
Yeah, and I found that they bend when you shoot on target, because they're not rear deploy, they're that mid deploy, so that these tips right here, they end up bending, continuously shooting through heavy duty targets. Like I like shooting into crossbow targets because I know the penetration we're going to get,
Right.
and I've had them bend on me,
Yeah. Yeah.
just from doing that. So
Well,
and
and
these
then
just don't not.
and yeah, the I think the biggest issue you hit on it, Paul, is the what I call in engineering, it's called cyclical stress. If you have and I started out blades with holes in them, thinking you might lock them down somehow, and then I realized
Yeah,
quickly that's not what I wanted to do because I needed solid metal hunting blades. I wanted these things to be very durable for people,
yeah,
shoot them through what you want, and then go hunt again, and not have a chance of the torsion breaking them. And so I went all solid hunting blades on the new broadhead coming out. They're all solid. They're actually even way beefier. And so, with that practice mode, that lock mode in there, what you have is the cyclical stress. If you have a broadhead that you can lock down, but it's the same blade, you're going to get an impact that's heavy, especially the high speed crossbows. And over time, you're going to develop micro cracks in that metal and that blade. And at any point in time, it's going to go. So I
Yeah,
don't like, I personally like my practice blanks a lot better because I know when I put fresh hunting blades on there, they have not been under an impact at all.
got it. So these screw, sorry, these screw holes are you screw one on each side, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's because they're overlapping on the inside. So it tightens
Actually,
one down, or what's the theory behind that?
actually, what I do with the set screws is so the main set screw that holds the blades on is a 440 on top, and you can see the opening on one side for that main one.
Yep.
The two small set screws I put in the same way on the opposing side. That way, the both heads that are open where the tool goes in equal each other and offset any weight. So you have perfect
So you're not
counterbalance.
getting variation in flight or anything
No,
like that.
yeah,
Great, awesome. I mean, you thought of everything on this tip in regards to the engineering, so this is pretty sweet. So let's talk about the next step of this evolution process here. We have the fixed blades, right? We
yeah,
got the basically they utilize the same ferrule, the same tip. The blades come out, they screw in the same way, but they lock in to the magnet in the
yeah,
back, and you have an open hollow blade that's 125, and then a solid blade that's 150, right? And then with a collar that gets you 175
yes,
on
sir.
that broadhead. So you're talking some weight there and some penetration. So what was the reasoning? I mean, obviously you wanted to create a mechanical broadhead and destroy the companies out there with it. So why go to fixed?
I think it was a natural evolution of someone in Africa said, "Hey, Josh, do you think you could somehow, make this convertible to a fixed blade? I see you being able to do that." And I thought, well, maybe we can. And I started looking at drawings and metal thickness and that sort of thing. And I realized if we overlap the blades in the middle, the three set screws lock it down, and then you have essentially the entire ferrule window full of stainless steel, and then you still have your 39 thousandths blades that cut out the side, but they're slightly offset from each other because of the thickness of the metal. So you actually get two cutting paths that are not the same path through the animal as a blade spinning. And so you get about 4 times more surface area of tissue cut, as well as having that 1 1/4 inch wide, single bevel cutting head that a lot of track guys, love. And so I think my big impetus was mostly the traditional guys saying, hey, I don't know if I want to move to a mechanical yet out of my traditional bow. It's something I just don't want to do. There's a lot of hot topics involved in that, and they didn't want to shoot a mechanical out of it, which you've already done. But this offered, everybody the possibility of going from a fixed blade to a mechanical blade, and within seconds you go back to mechanical if you want to.
Excellent. And it's held together with the same screw in the front, and you can switch basically any way you want. So now you offer, if I have, say, I went out and I bought 12 helicut broadheads just like this, I can call you up or go on the website and say, I want the open blades or the solid blades and just order the blades. Is that an
Uh,
opportunity?
yes, you can do that. What I prefer, because what we actually do is to build a fixed blade, we actually tap through the stainless steel. So what I prefer people doing is ordering the fixed blades from our shop, because before I send them to you, I'm going to tap through all three set screw holes and then put the set screws in, and the entire head's built for you. And then what we're now offering is essentially a blade refurb program. So if you have a bunch of blade shatter or you want your blades touched up on this head that you're using to go on a hunt, all you have to do is send a self-addressed stamp envelope with the blades back to me or the head back to me. I'll sharpen them, I'll rebuild it for you, or I'll take it's kind of like a diagnostic service, if you will. I'll look at the broadhead and say, hey, these blades are overly chattered. They're trash. Let's put new ones on here for you. And then the person can, buy brand new fixed blades from me or mechanical blades, and I'll just go ahead and put them on the head for them.
Awesome. So basically, it's a guarantee for how long?
Life. I mean, I can sharpen the blades until, they won't hold at weight anymore.
Excellent. So how thick do you think that till it starts changing weight on here? I mean,
I
because
would say, I mean, I could probably get
you
away
don't
with
got much on the end there.
I think I could sharpen them twice, probably. I mean, it depends on the
Okay.
chatter. It's all dependent on the chatter. But with the mechanical blades, my suggestion would be if you have a bunch of edge chatter mechanicals, just replace them. Just put new blades
Yeah,
on. It's worth it.
got it. Perfect. Um, so with that happening, is there a way for someone to sharpen them themselves at home if they feel like they shot an animal and they're like they're sharp, but I just want to make sure, or I just want to take this little nick out of it that's there or whatnot? Is that a possibility, or what would
Oh
you
yeah.
recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend as long as you can hold your angle. I do use a 35-degree angle on my cutting blades. The tip is slightly different. It's a little proprietary. I'm not going to reveal that one yet, but the cutting blades are 35 degrees, like any general gator style rear deploy, and the cutting blades are, single bevel as well. I would suggest getting a stone if you can hold an angle of 35 degrees on your whetstone and sharpen them with, or you can simply just get like a Lansky sharpener in the field and just stroke it a couple times. I mean, you generally should never almost have to resharpen these things. It's a point where these blades might need resharpened after maybe 4 or 5 pass throughs of the animal.
Yeah. So, and you went into Africa earlier this year, and you went through how many game animals with the same head?
Uh, Up to I think 4 or 5 with the same head. Yeah, just pass right through, wash it
And we're
off,
we're
put the blade
talking
back on.
big animals. We're not
Yeah,
talking, game buck or gains buck or, impala. We're talking
no,
bigger animals.
yeah, we're talking kudu. We're talking warthogs with those heavy gristle plates in the shoulders. We're talking Cape Buffalo. The Watusi was huge, and
Oh yeah.
that Watusi, when I pulled the air out of it, it was all the way up to the fletchings. The Clovis, every Clovis was in perfect shape, including the Cape Buffalo. Matter of fact, we went back to the lodge as the trackers and the people were actually getting the Cape Buffalo loaded on the truck, and then they actually brought me the bolt later, bloody, and they just removed it from the Cape Buffalo, and they wanted to bring it to me for pictures and such, and the entire head was in perfect shape. So it's been pretty awesome to see something I engineered performing for bow hunters, but it's not a feather in my cap. What it is research and science. That's what this Clovis is based on, is solid research and science and engineering principles.
Yeah. And I think it'd be hard to say for maybe not all broadhead companies, but the vast majority of them. I don't think they'd be able to sit here across the table and have a conversation this intricately about their design and why they did it. Sure, there's engineering and there's physics behind everything, but to sit there with a straight face and have to be everything you say is true. Why? Because I've been using them for over a year and I know 100%, and I sell them in my shop here in Culpeper. But this product is game changing in the archery industry. It's one broadhead that you can use for everything. Like I said, my son has been shooting them since he shot 20 pounds. He's now up to 30 something. I shoot him, 70 pounds. My moose bow this year is 80 pounds. Josh shoots them out of every crossbow that's there. I go with my crossbow with my son. I just unscrew it, I put it on my bolt, and I go. I don't
Yeah,
even worry about it.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, and to have it 100% everything American made, basically by yourself and your wife with some other people there helping you out, in the milling process. But it's just a beautiful head, and a beautiful product, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So, look forward to more from TriplePoint. I know there's some big things happening there with the new style coming out early next year. I don't know how you can beat it, but
Well,
hey.
the new Levitech technology is pretty mind blowing. We have our Earth Tech on the original Clovis, but I just got done shooting this new broadhead today, and it's an absolute monster. I mean, the Clovis itself is a monster in its own respect, but I think my favorite part of it is the fact that you can shake that broadhead just like the new one as hard as you want on that arrow. Those blades aren't moving at all, but yet on impact, it takes 3 pounds of force to blow open. And so what I've tried to do is kind of, if you will, squeak out every joule of kinetic energy in this broadhead, because if you think about an arrow, I don't care what you're shooting it out of. When you shoot that arrow, that's the energy you have. Like that's it, is what you start with when it
Yep.
comes off that string. And so what I ran into was a lot of whitetail there. The home farm I grew up on, I have tons of stories of hunting whitetail all across these farms, big whitetail, taking many, many, many of them. But then several of them I shot and I made a great shot and I got horrible penetration. I got to thinking, well, what's it take to open up a mechanical broadhead? And I started looking at force graphs and data of force over time, and I realized, man, it's almost like a catcher's mitt. Like when there's so many mechanical broadheads, when they impact, either the head has to compress or the blade has to break something open or off or something. You're absorbing the impact instead of punching through and cutting through,
Yeah.
and the Clovis just cuts through. There's nothing absorbing impact on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I shot back a couple years ago. We were at our house in Monroe when I shot Thor. He's in 151. I had another buck the year after come out, and I had my 10-point crossbow, and I had a new, actually no, it was my Halon at the point, and I had a the new NAP kill zone came out where they had the two blades here and the two blades there, the four blade,
Yeah.
on off opposing forces. And I shot this monster of a deer at 20 yards and hit him a little bit just below high shoulder, and I got like that much penetration out of it. And we're talking a 72-pound Matthews Halon with FMJ arrows, like not a cheap ass setup. And that
Yeah.
broadhead just didn't, it just absorbed every bit of it. And then I shot my elk, over 1,000-pound elk with this broadhead, and it sailed through them and just kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean,
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
the I will say not just because I'm the designer, but that's what it's for. I mean, my frustration wasn't just deployment, Paul. My frustration was penetration and pass-throughs.
Yeah.
We actually didn't release a study, but we purposefully went up against some other heads, some well-known heads, some market owning heads, if you will, in the broadhead industry, and we actually went up against them through a wildebeest in South Africa, and the Clovis blew all the way through the animal, and the other head only got about 4 or 5 inches of penetration. So, we're in the background, we're studying these things, we're collecting data. Sometimes people don't see, and that's something that I hope, and I hope I can reveal more to people. I'm doing the best I can with showing people when I'm out shooting, why am I doing it? What am I studying? And of course, I can't tell everyone everything. Some things are proprietary or intellectual property. But I will say that the new head that's going to come out will blow some minds. Our new Levitech technology is just, it's mind numbing. Like the amount of impact force on the new head. First of all, I guess I'll say a couple things about it. The cutting blades levitate, which is pretty insane. And I'll show you more about that later. And the impact cut is huge. And the energy is the same penetration energy as the original Clovis, but a much larger cutting diameter. And then the other thing about it that's incredible is the fact that you have the precision shooting still. The blades won't come off. You can shake it as hard as you want. But what I did is I actually decreased the impact force to deploy to only about a little more than half a pound. So as far as the impact force to deploy, it's taking about a half a pound instead of 3 in the original Clovis, which is already low. It doesn't take much to deploy the
So,
original Clovis, but
yeah. So how do you change that? Is that like just different strength magnets, or is that just
um,
proprietary info?
it's
Like
it,
I
it
don't know the physics behind it. Like I know this has a
yeah.
magnet and it holds it in and it's a certain size that it takes that much force, but how would you go about adjusting that?
It's a change in the lever action of the cutting blades and the length of them versus
Okay.
the distance to the magnet.
Okay. Got
Yeah,
it. But it's the same magnet.
same magnet. Yes. Yeah,
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty
Well,
awesome.
I don't want to reveal too many secrets, but I can't wait to try it. And I'll be first on the block to buy a bunch of them. So,
Appreciate it.
um, but yeah, this is Campfire Stories here with the Bowmen, and we're talking with Josh from TriplePoint Outdoors, and we just basically reviewed the ins and outs of this Clovis Broadhead. Couple things that I do want to say, and basically a wish list from Josh, I guess you can say. I think once you get all these beautiful broadheads out there in the world, you got to offer color variation, man.
I
I
like
want to
that.
see a flat black, a flat green, maybe pink for breast cancer awareness. Something customizable out
Like a
there.
little,
Leave the blades and the tip just the ferrule. Different color would be nice. I know people out there tend to like that a little bit more. But this is just a sexy product. I mean, I love having it in my quiver. I own a shop, Romano Outdoors in Culpeper, Virginia, and I have these on the shelf. And everyone that comes in for broadheads, they're like, "What is that thing?" And I still use the old school setup because I love it. I have them in the test tubes.
yeah.
Um, and I show everyone how they work, and I talk to them about it. And I have the original one that I shot all my game with there, and I'm just like, you don't believe me? Here it is. All I did was wash it off. Like, here's the dirt. This one's gonna go back there too. Go send a 9-year-old rampage with a new bow and see what he shoots with it, and there'll be
Right.
trees and dirt and logs and everything else, and it's still here working. And I would have no hesitation opening day of deer season of strapping this on the front of my bow and going. And he calls him Fred the rabbit. He missed Fred about 97 times. So we're still trying for Fred, but But yeah, no. So next part here with Campfire Stories, we want to try to keep it a little bit under our normal time, but I want to reach out to you and talk a little bit about what's your favorite hunting story or outdoor story.
Oh
Maybe
man.
something you've never told anyone. I know you're going to Africa again here in what, 25 days, 24
Yeah.
days?
Yep.
Excuse me. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot more to say about that. And I'm going to be bothering you nonstop for pics and all that while you're hunting. But if you had to put it out there, what would be your number one experience that you've had until you're 42 now? So
Yeah.
in those 42 years, what would you rank as number one?
Well, it's a hard one. I think as far as bow hunting is concerned in my life, the most impactful hunt I've had to date is probably last year. I got access to hunt a couple beautiful farms here in Loudonville, Ohio by I call him a friend now. He is a former student's dad that I taught, and beautiful farms. You know, went out, we scouted him. I rode around with him in his truck. He's a super awesome guy. His heart is absolutely into hunting, and so I think beyond hunting, I just like hanging out with this guy. You know, it's like the camaraderie of hunting is bigger than the hunt itself. And so I think everybody that's, you know, been in a blind with some friends or been in the back of a bucky in Africa with their friends, those are some of my most memorable hunts. I can't really sort out one. It's kind of hard, Paul, because I just had so many fun experiences in the past few years with this. Africa was its own animal in itself with the friends I have over there in Hunt Tech, but I'd say hunting the farm last year and putting my broadhead that I designed through a buck at 15 yards was probably a pinnacle in my hunting career for myself. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the night. Matter of fact, the night before I shot that buck, I was on top of a hill in horrible weather. It was cold, it was blowing and raining, and I got a real video. I was sitting up there, and I still have it. I'll post it sometimes here and there. But I kind of scanned down my bow and my arrow to the end of the arrow where the Clovis was, and I'm sitting up in this tree, and it was a hang-on stand. It had no seat because it was a really old hang-on. He told me, "Yeah, you can hunt there if you want." I shimmied up the climbing sticks that were like shaky and kind of half. I'm like, this is probably really dangerous. So I got up in the stand and sat there, and a bobcat came around the corner of the field and caught me before I caught him, and then he took off. But then the very next night, it was almost like, you know, the sky opened up, the sun came out. It was a fall day. I climbed up my tree stand about 15, 18 feet in the air. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and by 4:30 the buck was on the ground. It's just a pretty incredible hunt. I texted the guy after I shot it. He was maybe, I think he was trolling through, maybe looking for hot does or something. But I got up in the stand, I was taking pictures and such and looking around, and you know, hit my grunt tube a few times, not seeing anything. And all of a sudden I looked down the hill and he was standing there, and he was a nice like 145, you know, 9 point, nothing huge. He had a split brow tine. And I saw him and I was like, okay, he's a mature deer. And if he gives me a shot, it's the one chance I had to put my Clovis through this fall, you know, a buck finally, and I'm going to take it. And he came up and he started coming up the valley in this logging trail. And I had a tree in front of me. I was in a tree that V'd, and I could see him in the V, the crotch of the tree. And I grunted to get him enticed, and he started coming at me. And I put my grunt call away because he was coming on the line. And I thought, okay, buddy, you know, you got to go left or right, but I want you to go to your right because that's my shooting angle. I'm a right-hand shooter. And of course, he chose the opposite. So I was like, okay, if I spin too fast, he's going to bust me and be gone. So what I did is I watched his eyes, and he looked down the hill at 1 second. And for some reason, my body said, just do it. And I just whirred and turned with my bow. And luckily, he didn't catch me. And he was by a log at 15 yards. And I drew, I had my pin on him, and I let go. And that was all it wrote. I mean, beautiful, beautiful entry, blow all the way through. Exit was just as nasty, blood everywhere. But he only went about 40 yards and went down no problem with a double lung shot. But other than that hunt, I would say the year before was one of the most memorable because that was the year I shot the biggest buck, archery buck I've shot. He was right at 170 at our home place here we bought, and I had no cameras up, I had no salt blocks out, I had nothing. I just threw a stand up. And sometimes those are the most memorable hunts of your life. And I'm sitting there, and a hot doe came running in, and he was behind her, and he stopped at 15 yards out and made a scrape, and then he started taking off beside me, and I was already at full draw, and I let him get right where I wanted him. I bleeded, and luckily he paused, and I let go. But that was actually the night I decided to dedicate what I was doing to the Clovis design and go 100% at it was when I let go of the arrow, it went through him and he went 20 yards and piled up. And I had just before I shot that deer been texting my buddies about the design of the Clovis. And I said, I'm about ready to kick this thing off. And when that happened, I call him Tater because I call all big deer taters, but I don't really name them. I just call them a tater if they're big. My buddy and I kind of laugh and joke about that. But like, oh, look at that tater of a deer over there. And we just have fun with it. So at that point, that night I knew that I wanted to do this. I was going to do all I could to make it work. And like anybody out there, you have a dream and you think about it and you try to figure out how to do it. And then at some point, you just kind of have to send it. And I think at this point, I'm comfortable enough that we're just over here sending it and we're having fun doing it. And it's going to be based on science and engineering. Our performance for abroad is not based on conjecture and hopes. It's based on science and engineering.
Awesome. So was that a Clovis deer
He was
or
not. He
no?
was he was a fixed blade deer. Yeah.
Fixed blade deer.
It was
Okay.
I had no Clovis at that point. It was just a hope and a dream at that point.
So in less than a year, basically, you were able to turn around, get your prototype made, and then kill a 145 with it. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it was
That's
something. I
that's pretty
mean,
special.
I hit the gas at that point. I didn't. I was up late at night. My wife knows. I did most of the design work at the kitchen table with my laptop and at Ashby's journals beside me. I had things highlighted in them. I knew what I wanted it to look like. I knew what I couldn't do as far as existing patents out there in the world and how it would have to work. And I figured out what I wanted to do with my broadhead. And then, of course, it led to the development of the turkey foot, the fixed blade carnivora series, a new broadhead next year. It's coming out. It's going to be a kind of a style of a turkey guillotine. And then, of course, what I call the Clovis Cut Plus, which is probably going to be a really big selling broadhead, or what we call Clovis V2, which is the second version of Clovis with a larger cutting diameter.
Awesome. Amazing. So, two questions before we depart. Um, are you happy with it?
Beyond my wildest dreams. It's
Yeah.
been doing. I when I before I let go in Africa on a bunch of those animals, I thought, at a certain point you worry, like, okay, is it going to perform and do what it needs to do? And then at a certain point, I was able to just enjoy and have fun. And so now when I go back with trees at the end of July here, of course, we have some things to do with this new broadhead, but I couldn't be happier with how it's performing for people. And then I think beyond anything is just seeing people's joy with getting their game on the ground. They appreciate and respect the broadhead for what it does, and they like shooting it. And so I really, really, really appreciate that beyond anything, beyond sales, beyond marketing, beyond the hunts I get to do. I appreciate seeing people's harvests, and their joy is better than what I get to experience. That's better for me than anything.
Awesome. Um, Last question. So if you were to tell or give any advice to anyone, um, basically starting off in the hunting industry, not even in the industry, but in hunting in general, say it's a 15, 16-year-old kid that saw it on TV and wants to start hunting, what would be your advice to them?
I think my advice is pursue your passion. No one does it the same way. No one's going to do it with the same bow or the same broadhead. If you shoot a triple point, that's great. If you don't, I'm going to hunt with you anyway because I love hunting. That's at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what we're all here for. And so I'd say pursue your passion, enjoy every bit of it. Work your tail off. It's going to take some work. Paul, that it doesn't nothing in life comes easy worth having.
Oh yeah.
And so while I still work hard every day, there's all sorts of things that need done with the Clovis V2 as far as testing and data and everything I'm doing with it. I wouldn't do it unless I enjoyed it at the end of the day. And yeah, it can be exhausting, but I think hunting is so rewarding beyond the actual harvest. It's the friendship you have, the hunt itself, the time. My experience just seeing Africa, just seeing a place 7,000 miles from my home and being away from my family is kind of hard. But then the relationships and friendships I formed there, I'll have for life. And so I'm just excited that I have the opportunity. And I would say for that young person coming in, um, learn. I mean, that's who I am. I'm always learning. I'm always going to talk to the person that knows more than I do. I want to talk to people that know more about broadheads than I do. I am a lifelong learner, and maybe that comes from me being a former teacher. But I've told my students this, and so I think I need to walk the walk. And if I'm going to talk the talk, just continue learning. I've I've ran into some things with this new V2 where I didn't know if I could do it. And then, my wife kind of pushed me and said, "Hey, I'll bet you can do that. I'll bet you can figure it out. You can do this." And so like any normal human, you have times where your life's cyclical. You kind of go, "Okay, this is great." And then, "Okay, this is the problem." Just keep going, just keep busting down the doors, um, learning from people and form those relationships, and you're going to get to where you want to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Great way to end it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're one of the big members here of the Bowman podcast, but being a little bit more intimate in the conversation's nice, to go about it. So I hope everyone out there understands a little bit more here about the Clovis. Go out, buy it, try it. I know I have a shop that sells the Clovis, one of the only brick and mortar shops in the US. And, Josh and TriplePoint, they guarantee their blades and they'll replace them or sharpen them, whatever. But I guarantee the head in fully as well coming out of the shop. So that's how much I believe in the product. And I put my own money behind it to make sure that happens and it stays going. So thank you for coming on today. I think this is going to be a big one for TriplePoint and for the Bowmen. We have great things coming up. You're headed to Africa here in 25 days.
Yep.
I got a moose hunt coming up the end of the month in August. We got Caleb and Cedric chasing antelope out there August 15th. And then once we get back to that, we'll be into elk season a little bit, seeing who goes out there. I know Cedric's got some tags he might have drawn out in Colorado. You're going for cow elk, right? Out in where are you going out for that?
Yeah, I
Wyoming?
believe so. Oregon, or it depends on.
Oregon?
Well, it depends on if I end up hunting for antelope in Nebraska with Caleb or Cedric. I don't know. We'll find out August and figure it out. But there's just going to be so much this next year. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. So we got a lot of good things coming. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next series.